It's all about making something which is going to get revenue for you and start to generate a profit. Once you've got that and you've got some great fans, you've got an awesome audience, you're charging people, then that's the point where you can start to go, okay, I think I've got product market fit. Now I need to start turning on the growth engine so that I can start to push this out to more people.
Welcome to episode 26 of the Spen and Nick Show, and this week we're going to start with a problem. The problem is you've got an idea floating around inside your head, but you're not sure what to do with it. Worry no more and let it float around no more in your head, because this week on the Spen and Nick Show we're going to talk about how to turn your idea into a business in 2020. So Spen, do you want to share what some of the key phases are before we get into some of the detail?
Yeah. Let's do it. I think this is such a good episode. I'm really excited for this one. I think there's loads of people that have ideas all the time, and they're just not able to turn them into reality for a whole load of reasons. So we really want to try to help people to unleash those ideas, let them live, and see if we can turn out some amazing businesses from it. So broadly, I think there are three main kind of phases of any business has to go through. So the first one is really to try and figure out and understand what it is that you're going to build. And this involves a whole load of things about yourself, but also the wider world as well. So that's a really important thing. What is it that you're going to build? The second thing is building that thing and making sure that your audience love it. And this is about trying to find product market fit. And we'll talk a bit about what product market fit is in a few minutes. And then the third phase is turning that, you've got that idea, you've proven that there's a market potential for it and that people want it, then you need to turn that into a sustainable business, and that's phase 3. So 3 phases: understand what it is you're going to build, start to build it, gather an audience, and make sure you've got product market fit. And then the third thing is turn that into a sustainable business long term. They're the 3 phases. Should we go into the detail on them?
Yeah, definitely. So for that first phase, one of the first things you had down was figure out where you should focus.
So I think we both really believe that everybody can be an entrepreneur. Everyone can be a business owner. And the key thing for me is to understand what it is that you are the best person in the world at doing. What is it that you should do that not only are you passionate about, not only do you really want to do, but also you have a bit of expertise and knowledge about that thing as well, so that you can really make sure you're doing the right thing that you're going to absolutely love. Building a business is hard. It's always going to be hard. You need grit and determination and resilience. So making sure that you're working in an area that you really love is so important. So that's the first thing to do, is figure out what you should be doing as an individual. What's the best thing for you to do, the business? What's the best business for you to focus on?
Great. Okay. And then next up, we've got look for and validate problems.
Yeah, man. So look, one of the biggest causes of failure for businesses, and I've been in this boat as well, with a couple of businesses that have failed and some others that have very nearly failed before they've kind of took off. And this is about, and the reason that businesses fail is because they haven't found, people don't want that product. They don't need that product. So important to validate the problems before you even start to think about what those potential solutions could be. You need to make sure you're identifying pains that people have, not just like wants, not just something that people think, oh, that would be good if I could do that. This has got to be something which is solving a real pain, a real problem that people have. And that's a really hard thing. It's a really challenging thing to get right. But there's a whole load of tools and frameworks that can help you to identify those pains and problems that people really have, to try to make sure that what you build is really going to work and it's going to have that market potential.
Brilliant. That sounds good to me. And then let's move on to discover opportunities.
So those first 2 steps are very much about you as an individual person. So what is it that you should do? What are you the best person in the world at doing? And what are your experiences and your passions driving you towards? And then the second thing is identifying problems that people have. And the best way to identify a problem is it's a problem that you personally have. That's definitely the best angle to go for. Now, the next one is all about the external world. So where are other people having problems? What underserved needs do people have? Where is there a gap in the market? What are the competition for that kind of product or that service doing? Where are they not playing? And where are those opportunities to add value to other people beyond yourself that they're not currently served with an existing product? That's where you need to be looking for those opportunities.
And then I like this as well, because this leads us on to our book of the year, Testing Business Ideas, which has a lot of clues here, or tips for how to test your business ideas.
Yeah, and I this is a bit of a funny one actually, because I've put this at like stage 4, or the fourth part of this initial phase of making sure you're building the right product and figuring out what idea it is. But actually, you should be testing at every single stage. You should constantly be testing your ideas, testing your solution, testing your strategies. But actually, it's got to exist somewhere if you've got a list. And so testing ideas is so important. And this is probably where it's most important. You need to be testing that the problem that you've identified really does exist. You need to be testing that there is no other solution in the market. As you said, testing business ideas, I think there's 44 different experiments that you can run at various phases across various different business ideas and different types of business and business models. So yeah, test. If there's anything, if you take anything away from this show, and what we do all the time, Nick, is that you've got to be testing everything as often as possible, as much as possible. So test ideas is a really
You need some form of data to validate that the thing you want to work on is worth working on, because you don't want to spend loads of time, loads of money on something nobody wants and no one's going to pay for. So test it first, get a little bit of data to prove that your hypothesis is correct, and then move on with it and spend a little bit more money on it. In the same way that, we started this show just using our iPhones. We're still using our iPhones. But what we've done is we validated that we enjoyed doing it and that people were watching it. Then what we've done is we slowly improved some of the equipment that we're using. So I've just spent some money on some new lights that are going to be coming soon. But I've not just bought all of the equipment at the very beginning. I've waited to make sure that it's something that we enjoy doing and that we're going to continue doing before I start spending loads of money and loads of time on something that could be a waste of time. So that's a little bit of an example. Let's move on now to the next phase, and that starts off with validating the market, right?
Yeah, this whole phase is all about finding product market fit. And it's a concept that was established maybe 10 years ago by a guy called Mark Andreessen, who's a big VC venture capitalist in America. He actually created Netscape and a whole load of amazing businesses. So he knows a lot about how to build great businesses and scalable businesses. So the idea behind product market fit is that your product serves a market need, and that the market, that there's a really good fit for that market. What you should never ever do in business is try to scale too early before you've found product market fit, because what that probably means is you're going to be wasting a whole lot of money on unnecessary marketing and all the other stuff before you've actually built up an amazing audience and a sustainable business. So finding product market fit is absolutely key. So this first step is about validating that market, and again, this is really down to testing your ideas. I think the next one after this is about building a web presence. For me, these two things come really closely together. You need to build a web presence and push that out into the world. Make sure that people are looking at it, viewing it, commenting on it, signing up, making sure that people really resonate with the thing that you're offering to them. So that's about not just is this idea any good, but like, is there a market that are going to really want this idea? And if there's a big enough market and you're building the right thing to fulfill that market, then that's the path to success. So the second thing, the third part of this phase is about creating an audience. Now, Nick, we talk a lot about kind of building up your fan base, right? 1,000 true fans. I think this is where this happens. In this phase, this happens. You want to just, you're not focusing on making loads of money at this stage. You're not focusing on massive growth and trying to get to tens or hundreds of thousands of users. You're trying to find a small core group of early adopters that absolutely adore what you're doing and are there as advocates and will really follow you and help you along the way. What you can do with those early adopters and those early advocates is really use them to make sure you're building the best product that you can. Okay, so you need to be having really close dialogue with them. You need to be talking to them every single day to make sure that what you're building is what they need. And then that comes on to the fourth phase or fourth stage of this phase, probably need to figure out what the best terminology is for all this stuff. But the fourth part is about actually now building your product. Okay, it may be that during the testing phases you've built an MVP, you built a landing page, you've built some kind of stuff to try to validate your ideas, but this is where the proper build of the actual product or the service that you're going to deliver really starts to happen. This is where you start to code rather than doing prototypes. This is where you actually build the functionality and figure out what that roadmap of all those product features that you've maybe had these ideas about, where they slot into place and how you can start to release those to your audience and charge money. So the fifth part of this phase is starting to charge money. You haven't got a business. I don't believe you have a business until you're charging money, until you're generating revenue. And we know that there's a lot of startup philosophies and ideas about, get as much investment as you possibly can, grow this big engine. But for me, having done that or tried to do that a couple of times, and I've done the other version of it, which is where you charge money early and you start to get a profitable business as early as possible. I think that the best way is to start to get profit as quickly as possible, particularly in uncertain times, in crises that we're in now. It's all about making something which is going to get revenue for you and start to generate a profit. Once you've got that and you've got some great fans, you've got an awesome audience, you're charging people, then that's the point where you can start to go, okay, I think I've got product market fit. Now I need to start turning on the growth engine so that I can start to push this out to more people.
And that's where we go into phase 3, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So phase 3 is all about building a sustainable business. So let's just go through those steps again. Firstly, you've identified the thing that you should build and that you want to build. You've then validated that there is a problem that people have that's similar to you, perhaps, and a problem that people are going to pay for. You've started to build out your product, and you've found that you've validated the market, and you've found that your product is something that people are going to pay for, and you're going to start to generate some money. This is where you need to start to grow. And this is growth in terms of, and this is where you need to start to grow. So this is growth in terms of your audience, your clients, your customers, the users, but it's also growth in terms of your team as well. You need to make sure that you're building the team that can do what it is that you need to do, that you're building a team that can deliver the strategy that you have for your product and your business. And growth is key. Again, what we're not talking about here necessarily is growing to $1 billion startup. This is still the same blueprint, the same pattern that everyone needs to get through, because we're building sustainable businesses. When you've started to grow your audience and you've started to realize that there are people that are going to buy your thing, and there are lots of people potentially that are going to buy your thing, then it's all about how can you scale this and scale this and scale this until you're at a point where you've really built something amazing that's high value to a lot of people. And that's where your scaling really starts to happen. So that's phase 3, all about growth and scale. And you only do this once you've proven product market fit, and once you've built a team that can really sustain that high level of growth and scale that you're looking for.
Brilliant. I want to jump in at this point.
Perfect.
Because I think it's really important to make clear how this makes it seem really easy to go from figuring out what you should focus on, to then being able to grow and scale the business. And I'll just move this one out of the way for the moment, because typically what people think is that they can get from there to there in a straight line and everything is sequential. But actually, in reality, it's quite a squiggly process where you're actually going back and forth between each of these different phases and stages. Isn't that right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It almost pains me that we've kind of put this into one linear flow, because it just doesn't work like that. And it would be remiss of us to try to get people to believe that, or to give this myth of this is how businesses are actually built. There is a constant back and forth. There's a constant turning around, going round in circles, building the wrong thing, thinking you're on one track and then realizing that you're on completely the wrong track. That happens all the time, and that's just a constant. That's about the evolution of your business, really. But I think if you have that in mind, and if you have each of these steps, and you know what you can do at each of these steps, then I think there's a much better chance of you being successful with your business.
Definitely. And also, one thing that I'd like to add is the approach that I'm taking right now with what I'm doing for my business as a kind of strategy consultant, as an innovation consultant, as a facilitator. I'm not rushing to make money from my business at the moment because I've got income coming from other places, which means that I'm not so like short-term focused in terms of generating revenue. I'm more of a going for a long-term play. And so from my perspective, the things that I'm really interested in most is actually creating an audience and also trying to figure out where I should focus. Those are the two main things that I'm focusing on right now. But that's not to say that that's for everyone. But I think that's a good way for me because what I want to do is create my audience, and then I can figure out later on what I want to sell them basically. But it's a much longer term play, and I think for most short term, for people that need to generate revenue in the short term, I would recommend going through the process that Spencer's outlined here.
Yeah, actually, I think that's a really good point, and I don't necessarily think it should be sequential. You do this, 1, 2. What's this? We've got 11 stages or 11 steps in this altogether. I think you shouldn't necessarily do them in that perfect order. You should do them at the time which is best for you, and that would depend on the kind of business that you're trying to operate, what it is that your long-term goals are, what your short-term goals are. And so I think what is definitely the case is that in order to create a long-term sustainable business that works, you need to have kind of gone through all of these steps at some point. And so which order you do them in, sometimes it doesn't matter, sometimes it really does matter, right? You definitely shouldn't be growing until you've got product market fit, for example. You definitely shouldn't be building a product until you've identified the problem that you've got. And so there are some of those steps that can be done in different orders for sure. And I think the idea of an audience building is really important. You can build an audience at any stage. It's almost one of those things, a bit like testing ideas, that you can do at every single step. It's almost one of those things that umbrellas everything else. Constantly be trying to find your fan base, find your audience, communicating with them. This is what I'm doing, I suppose, with what we're doing as a part of Spen and Nick Show, but also what I'm doing as a part of Future Builders, like talking about what Future Builders could be as early as possible to try to get people interested, really. I'm also, the reason that I'm going through these steps at the moment from a Future Builders perspective is I think, I'm trying to test this. Is this roadmap, is this blueprint something that people resonate with? Is it the right thing? If it is, what I really want to be able to do is break down each of these steps and figure out how to help people transition from step 1 through to step 11 so that they can start to build sustainable businesses. That I think would be an amazing thing. And coming back to what we talked about last week with the value proposition canvas, it's all about helping people to figure out how to make some money, how to start businesses, how to start building products that people will love. That's what it's all about.
Perfect. I think that's a beautiful place to finish. So hopefully if you've liked this video, if you've liked the process that we've shared, please like the video, and also why not subscribe? Help us out. We'd really appreciate it. But until next time, cheers.
Cheers. I tell you what, mate, thank goodness I went and got that tea.
Exactly, that could have ruined the whole ending.
The whole thing gone.